Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this webinar on Veeam Availability Suite 9.5 Update 3 and our new Veeam agents, our biggest release in our 10-year history. My name is Vic Clary. I'm a product marketing manager at Veeam, and with me today is Rick Vanover, our director of technical product marketing and evangelism, as well as Andy Fernandez, one of our product marketing specialists. And we're going to explain to you how you can start managing all of your workloads from Veeam Backup and Replication's single pane of glass console. Okay, so before we get started, I want to share some quick housekeeping notes with you. The webinar is being recorded, and we will email you a PDF of the slides and a link to the recording once we have them available. Also, you are automatically muted on entry, so if you have a question, use the GoToWebinar Q&A box, and we'll try to answer it as soon as we can or recap at the end. We have excellent resources on the line today involved with us. So we'll be able to get to all of your questions, part of our R&D staff. Okay, so looking at the agenda, I'll give you a quick update on Veeam and then hand the mic over to Andy, who will talk a little bit more about the digital transformation of enterprises. After this, Rick and I will get into the new features introduced with Update 3, and then Andy and Rick will talk more about what's new with our agents, and then at the end, we'll save some times for questions. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Veeam, we were founded in 2006 and are headquartered in Switzerland. We continue to grow at an amazing pace and currently have over 282,000 global customers, including nearly 3/4 of the Fortune 500 and over half of the Global 2000. And most importantly, we like to point out the fact that we're #1 in customer satisfaction and are proud of the fact that we've earned a plus 73 Net Promoter Score from our customer base. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Net Promoter Score, it's a customer satisfaction indicator that businesses like to use to measure the willingness of customers to recommend their business to another business or to a friend. And this means our customers are 2 times more willing to recommend us than our competition. And it also places us in the same category as a few very successful businesses who have very loyal customer bases as well, like Southwest Airlines in the US and Pandora and Apple iPhone. So we're very proud of this ranking. But you don't have to just take it from us. The industry's leading analysts have also ranked us very high. Gartner, IDC, and Ovum continue to recognize Veeam as a leader in our industry. And for the 2nd year in a row now, Gartner has ranked us as a leader in the Magic Quadrant for data center backup and recovery solutions. And both IDC and Ovum list us as a clear leader within our sector. So we're very fortunate to also receive confidence from analysts too. Okay, I'm going to hand the floor over to Andy now, who will talk a little bit more about the digital transformation that's taking place within our, within your organizations today, which will dovetail nicely into how we're changing as an organization to help you with the transformation and make you as efficient as possible. Andy?
Thanks, Vic. Hi, everyone. Before we continue moving towards the technical and feature overview with Rick, we really want to set the tone from a business perspective, just so we all understand today's marketplace and why the need for these products and feature releases. And I think this quote does a really good job of encompassing today's environment, meaning today, consumers expect to interact with a business products, solutions, and services digitally and without interruption. When we think about this, every single purchasing experience we have to this day is digitized. You could stay at home if you'd like and order anything you want whenever you'd like at any moment. This is amazing for the consumer, but what it does, it really sets the tone for us not having any patience for downtime. Now, what this means is that enterprises of any sizes, but the modern enterprise needs to really focus on achieving their digital transformation goals. Especially with the rise of mobile platforms, cloud computing, and big data, it's extremely important that we focus on reducing downtime and really achieving these goals. But what does that really mean? Well, it means that we need to first recognize that our company has an availability gap. We did a study last year with ESG. It's called the 2017 Availability Report. And in this report, out of the survey, 82% of enterprises stated that they face a gap between user demand and what IT can deliver. This means that with everything that's going on with data growth, different changing workloads, and reduced patience for downtime, enterprises are not meeting those needs. Not only are they not meeting the needs, but they state that the inadequacies of their recovery capabilities when compared with SLA expectations of their business units are not up to par. So before you even achieve the future goals that you have for your digital transformation, you need to meet performance standards for today. Now, what is the impact of downtime in today's environment? Well, just 3 years ago, it was 10 million per year for an average enterprise, according to our study with ESG. Now, last year, it was $21.8 million. And this is just growing. And it really depends on the enterprise as well, right? A high frequency trading firm is going to have much higher number of downtime versus a smaller company. And we've broken down the numbers for you to really understand the scope of the impact. But the effects are not just monetary. Only 4% of executives believe their organizations experience only monetary impacts as a result of downtime. And apart from the direct financial loss, the loss in employee confidence could be very damaging. When employees don't have access to their mission critical applications or proper backups, this really affects both their performance and outlook of the company. And not just that, but not being able to meet compliance penalties can be disastrous for your company. For example, in this new grace period that we have with GDPR in the EU, if you don't meet it by the deadline, you could face up to 4% global turnover fee, or with a maximum of 20 million euros. And customer reputation as well. I remember a few weeks ago when Slack went down, just on Twitter alone, within the first 5 minutes, you could see the storm surge coming in of people just providing negative reviews for only a few minutes of downtime of a great service. So it's crucial that we understand that we are on the race to zero downtime. But before we solve for these digital transformation goals, we need to look at 6 specific barriers. And they are the high costs, slow recoveries, complexity of management, low backups, limited scalability, and point solutions. And apart from solving for those 6 specific pain points, you need to achieve availability across all platforms. Physical, virtual, cloud hosted, and cloud native. It's no longer an option. And apart from just efficiently solving and reducing downtime, enterprises need to be proactive about their recovery, not only making sure that everything from their testing to their replication goes seamlessly, but to really solve for operational efficiencies using that backup data. And with that, I'll allow Vic to introduce our VAS features.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy. So it's great stuff. So back in May of 2017 at our Veeam event in New Orleans, we announced a number of new upcoming features, and built-in agent management and new storage integrations were a couple of these features that we mentioned. And it turned out that both features ended up ready for release early. So we added them to update 3 to give you access to this functionality now. And as the slide indicates here, this has changed the focus of Veeam forever, because now you can manage all workloads, virtual, physical, and cloud from one location, the Veeam Backup and Replication single pane of glass console. So to deliver #1 availability for all your workloads for any app, for any data on any cloud, Veeam Availability Suite, which includes Veeam Backup and Replication and Veeam One, fully integrates with the latest versions of Veeam Agent for Microsoft Windows and Veeam Agent for Linux to also manage physical workstations, PCs and laptops, as well as those last remaining physical servers that you have within your organization. But centralized management isn't the only new feature included in Update 3. We're also introducing new strategic storage integrations with IBM and Lenovo to help those of you using IBM storage products or those of you who want to use them to further improve your performance. And we're also introducing new monitoring and reporting functionalities in Veeam One to help you manage your agents and meet compliance standards, plus even more that we'll share with you here in a few minutes. All right, so let's start with agent management, focus on that first. So after all these years of focusing focusing only on virtualized environment, you're probably asking, why has Veeam added agent management to its main product? It's pretty simple. On average, we know that most of you are about 75% virtualized. So a quarter of your workloads still remain on physical machines, which is a lot. There are a tremendous number of endpoint devices that you need to protect, as well as workloads from Windows and Linux servers that are in the public cloud that also need protected. So now we're offering that holistic backup solution for all of your workloads with simple centralized management from one console. So our new centralized management solution helps you significantly reduce complexity and maintain complete control of all of your vSphere and Hyper-V and Windows and Linux-based workloads from one single pane of glass. And it delivers centralized backup agent deployment and management to ensure none of your Linux or Windows machines are left unprotected. And it also includes Windows Server failover cluster support to protect your mission critical Windows Server failover clusters, your SQL Server failover clusters, and SQL Server always on availability groups in a transactionally consistent fashion. All right, so to get into more detail on this specifically, I'm going to hand the mic and control back over to Rick so he can explain this in a little more detail.
Well, thanks, Vic, and again, a big warm welcome to everyone attending here. And Vic, can you just give me a quick confirmation that you see the diagram?
Yep, I can see it.
Outstanding. So this agent management capability really starts from Veeam backup and replication to identify the different parts of your infrastructure that you want to protect with both Veeam Agent for Windows and Veeam Agent for Linux. Now we've grayed out the VMware and Hyper-V bit because this is a capability we've already had. It's not like it's not important. It's just we want to focus on servers, laptops, and workstations. And to identify those systems that you want to deploy the Veeam agent to, there's really three main constructs that can be used to build this protection group. The first is a list of systems. And then the next, which I like this one in the middle the most, especially for Windows systems, is an Active Directory object, such as an organizational unit, or it can be individual computer accounts. And then a third option is an export from a content management system. So if you have something that manages, workstations and servers and updates for those types of systems, if you can export that, we can take that as an input on where to deploy the Veeam agents. So these protection groups are a really critical construct that we want to start with. And then from there, the Veeam backup and replication server, once we've identified those Veeam agents of Windows and Linux, we can then identify that those Veeam agents are going to send their backups to a Veeam backup and replication repository. Now this is a target, a backup target that you might be using for your virtualized part of your data center, which are capabilities you have been using presumably with Veeam for some time now. But when we think about adding agents to the mix, we want to give it a really consistent experience in regards to how you build a job, to how you manage your storage, things like backup copy jobs and all of that. Now, a good question just came in from Matthias. He asks, can I roll out the Veeam agents via BNR with a free license? No, you can't deploy with the free license. That's where the workstation or server license allows that protection group to be made right here, because once these systems are identified, this will also include the process of deploying that agent. So we do need a workstation or a server license to build a protection group and deploy, Matthias. And once that is identified here, then we can set up a backup policy. So, take the Robo example where the Veeam backup and replication server will provide the configuration of what these agents are to do. And then from there, those agents will do a backup. And that's a use case where you have workstations maybe in a remote site that have a repository just for them. But the important thing to take away here is that we have a lot of options on how we can roll in the agent for Windows and the agent for Linux with really two different use cases, the server use case and the workstation use case. And server and workstation, that aligns to really three different things. The first thing it aligns to is the Veeam agent license, server or workstation. It doesn't align to Windows Server OSs versus Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 OSs. And then the third thing to note is it really comes down to the application. One of the main differences between server and workstation is that the server agent license, especially for Windows, has our established application-aware image processing logic. So if you have an application like SQL Server, and take the Robo example here for one, you might have one workstation in the remote office that actually is kind of a server. You know, there's a database on it, and maybe it's the timekeeping app for that remote office, a time clock or something like that. You can have the ability to manage those application-aware image processing and the like. But probably one of the most anticipated capabilities for the agent is the advanced logic for clusters. And we've already had a couple of questions here from Chris about that, and DAG clusters, Exchange Data Availability Group clusters. Those are supported now with Veeam Agent for Windows 2.1. Now, it's important to note that all of the cluster use cases require that the management be done by the server. And this screenshot here highlights this. When we say managed by server, what I mean by that is the job settings are set by Veeam Backup and Replication. Those of you who have played with the agent, and a number of questions have come out about individuals who have used the free edition, right? Those were all what I call managed by the workstation, so, or managed by the agent. So there was a local user interface that you could manipulate for the Windows agent. Now that's technically still there in the Linux agent. But in the Windows agent, especially for clusters, we have to have it coordinated by the server. And I'll show you that in the demo in just a second. Now with that, I actually do want to go ahead and show you a couple of things. So I want to show you a number of things, but it's mostly around this agent management bit. So I'm going to switch over to the lab, and let's see. Yep, okay, there we do have the lab. So I'm actually going to throw things up on their head today. I'm actually going to start on Veeam 1, believe it or not. Veeam 1 is part of Veeam Availability Suite, and you know, the virtual infrastructure monitoring, this is stuff you might have known that we can do, okay? It's pretty good. I got 7 virtual machines and 2 dodgy hosts. That's pretty good for my lab here. But I'm going to flip it up a little bit. I'm going to go into Business View. And Business View has one really good thing I want to show you right here. It's a breakdown. Well, it's a bad place for the magnifier, but it's a breakdown of the different agents that I have. I have 1 Linux server and in this example 5 Windows servers, but you have a good view of how those agents are distributed. So you have some really good, oh, of course all my backups are green, I like that. You have a really good view of these agents at a high level. And then if you didn't know, by the way, but Veeam 1 can actually report on your backup infrastructure. And this is one of my favorite capabilities. All of my backup jobs, all of my replication jobs, all of my sure backup jobs. The agent logic is in here too. You can take a look here and see that these agent jobs are generally going pretty good. I have one that's not quite going as expected. I'll check that out, but at least I know what's going on. And in addition to this visual aid, there's a lot of reporting, and we'll talk about the reporting here in a second, but you can get a good list of what is protected and such. And that's all from Veeam 1, which is part of the suite, which is good stuff. So moving swiftly along, I want to also show you this integration in its connected form. Now the beautiful thing here is that this is a Veeam Backup and Replication console that has everything that you've known from Veeam and the new stuff. I'm going to sort it by type. I've got Hyper-V, I've got VMware, I've got Windows Agent, I've got Linux Agent, I've got a little bit of everything going on here. By bringing it all together, this is an interface that we've known over the years that we're now including the agents for. And those of you with a keen eye will know that we've renamed this part of the user interface. This used to be called virtual machines, but it's now more aptly called inventory. And in here, there's a number of things. So if you've played with the free edition before, these are going to show up in here. Or if you've explicitly had an agent come in that's not part of a protection group, it's going to be in here, a licensed agent. And then these 4 things that I have as an example here, these are those protection groups that I was just talking about. So I'm going to just go ahead and set the settings real quick so you can see this. So I've got my physical domain controller, and I've got the agent installed on it. I made this as a protection group. So this protection group is going to go to the Active Directory OU that is most relevant for my environment, which are the domain controllers OU. Okay, so that makes some sense on this environment here. So I have the Active Directory objects set here, and when I go through and identify the domain controller OU, that will have all of those computer accounts that I'm going to install the Veeam agent on for these physical domain controllers. And I have some options around if it's been offline, or if it's virtual, or if there's any explicit exclusions you want to have. There's some notions of master accounts, which is pretty important on how these agents will interact with the Veeam backup and replication server, as well as the local system itself. And then this notion of the protection group, it's redefined every day. In this case, at 9 p.m. every day. If you have a lot more of a dynamic environment, you can even make it like rescan it, on the hourly basis or such. And then there's 2 new capabilities here that I want to highlight. And these are very important: the change block tracking driver and the notion of automatically installing that backup agent. These are really important in that you can get those agents out, and whether it's the domain controllers in this example, or if it's robo workstations or just physical servers, it's the same logic. But this change block tracking driver, when we first learned about it, words like rocket science were used. This is really, really cool stuff. This is a experience that we've had in the virtual environment that we're now bringing to cloud and physical workloads. And then it'll just quickly define out this protection group, and we'll have what we need to install the agent on systems, and then more importantly, run that scan and identify what agents are in there. And here's that scan. We're going to query AD, find that there's one domain controller in there, and the agent's already in there. We're good. Okay. Now, if there's more than one system, it's of course going to enumerate them, but that's usually all background, and you do that one time. And then the beautiful thing is, once you have this protection group, you can do a couple of important things. One is you can set that locality, and I've got 2 localities already set here that Vic was mentioning, or we can go into setting a job. Now, I've already got this one set with an Active Directory agent backup job, which I'll show you real quick. And the agents, by the way, still have those Veeam Explorers that you've come to know and love, right? That's something that you'll need with an application like Active Directory. But I'm going to manage this server workstation with the Veeam backup and replication server, and then I've given it a job name, and then I've set up that as the domain controllers OU from that protection group. And then I'm setting up these options here, which are really standard with Veeam. So it's very straightforward for us to know what storage we're going to put it on. And I think I'll get this message. Here it is. So I've not set a location, by the way, on the actual domain controller, but I have set it on the backup control storage. So we have some logic right here that's going to let me know that I might potentially be breaking some of my rules. This is really important stuff when you think about, yes, I'm going to proceed. Really important stuff when you think about how you need to manage your data in regards to data locality. And then the application aware processing, again, this is new for the agents for things like clusters and enterprise apps, but this is really built on logic we've had with Veeam for years, actually ever since version 1. And then a time to run this backup job, and we're good. That's all there is to it. So this is very familiar stuff in a way that I hope that everyone can say, wow, now I really can make all of my workloads available with ease. And I'll show you one other protection group real quick, and that is the Linux side of the house. So protection groups don't have to be just Windows. So I have one Veeam agent for Linux here that is defined very much in the same way, except I'm not going to use Active Directory. I've got an individual list of systems, and I've got one Veeam agent for Linux system, but the options go down the same, and install the agent. And this, by the way, this question is that it's Veeam agent for Linux or Windows. The change block tracking driver applies just to Windows. But once I do the same logic, I have now this Veeam agent for Linux system that's in a job, and I think I already have one made. Yeah, example 1. So the same logic kicks in, and I have on disk now this this actually physical machine, who is a Veeam agent for Linux system. And this, by the way, if you haven't played with this system, it's pretty straightforward, pretty powerful, and a really good way to get availability on the systems you might have. Okay, last thing I want to show you, I'm going to switch environments through the magic here. But the last thing I want to show you is that cluster support. So we have one cluster job here that I just want to highlight. And basically, this is a SQL always on cluster. Everything's the same, except it must be managed by the server. And you'll see right here the clustered resource. That's the first object that we kind of identify, and then the individual nodes go through their backup. So if you're used to backing up virtual machines or a backup job with many virtual machines in it, this part of it looks real familiar, that each individual part or node of the cluster or virtual machine in a job, those are inventoried as such, but you can back those clusters up just that way. And it's important to note that again, we got that clustered resource icon going in right there. So that's a quick demo. I love to tell those stories, and there's a lot more we can tell, but we do have to move swiftly along. So I'm going to send it back over to Vic to carry the conversation on around our storage integrations.
It's great, Rick. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the demos. All right, so now let's talk a little bit more about the storage integrations included in Update 3. So thanks to the release of our new storage API, which I'll talk about in a little bit more in a few minutes, Update 3 also includes a new integration with IBM Spectrum Virtualize, and this provides our users an integration with the IBM Storewise family and SAN volume controller, as well as Lenovo's Storage V series. And just like with our existing storage integrations, those of you who use IBM and Lenovo will now be able to significantly reduce the impact on your production environment and get much lower RTOs and RPOs through backup from storage snapshots for IBM and Lenovo. You'll also be able to leverage a new Veeam Explorer for IBM and Lenovo storage snapshots to get fast granular recovery. And you'll be able to lower the risks that are associated with your deployments by creating isolated copies of production by using our on-demand sandbox to test and to troubleshoot workloads before you roll them to production. And then finally, you get snapshot orchestration at primary storage to improve RPOs and mitigate potential data loss by using snapshot-only jobs to create additional, more frequent recovery points. So this is just another great addition to Update 3. Rick, is there anything you'd like to add to this as well?
Well, the main thing is that, if anyone has any of those integrated sources, so IBM storage that we support, the Lenovo storage, as well as the NetApp HPE, I forget, probably something I'm forgetting, the Dell EMC ones. If you have any of those, Cisco HyperFlex, definitely put Veeam in the mix. If anything, the ones that support Veeam Explorer for storage snapshots, this is incredible technology where you can have a recovery point in the middle of the day without any preparation. So if anything, the Veeam Explorer is something to consider, but just really, it's all about having those additional recovery options and the ability to do a backup basically at any time of the day with backup from storage snapshots. So if you have those storage, the only thing I would advise, Vic, is just definitely get it in a lab and have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Rick. And to explain in a little more detail about how we came about developing the IBM integration this time around, Update 3 also included the release of our new Universal Storage Integration API, and we're very excited about this. This now, makes it possible for us to integrate with even more storage providers and get the integrations to market faster for you, through our actual partners' development of their own plugins to our storage API. So we can add these partnerships much more quickly and immediately help you improve performance and get 50 times faster backups and improved RTOs and RPOs, as well as provide wizard-driven controls to improve overall usability, with the world's leading storage providers. So, before update 3, as Rick mentioned, we already had integrations with Cisco HyperFlex and Dell EMC, HPE, and including Nimble and NetApp, and our IBM and Lenovo integrations were built by us using this new API to test it initially. But now, the API is live. Now we'll be adding our first third-party built storage snapshot plugin soon, starting with Infinidat in the upcoming months here. And then the next solution that will sequence into QA after Infinidat will be Pure Storage. So as opposed to adding one new storage partner per year through a major release, we'll be in a position now to expand this to 2 or 3, maybe even 4 new storage partners per year. So stay tuned for more announcements on this. And while we're on the topic of added support, Rick, will you talk a little bit more about some of the other new supported platforms we're introducing with update 3?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about Veeam's capabilities, I really put platform support as a top line, right? I know we talk about new Veeam capabilities, but these new platforms in which we integrate with are actually very important as well, because you might want to back them up, or you might want to install Veeam components on them. So looking through this list here, one particular one that sticks out is the Germany region of Azure for Veeam Restored Azure, right? That's new as a target that we can do. Additionally, SQL Server 2017, if you have it, you might want to back it up. That makes good sense to me, as well as the new Windows updates, both Windows 10 Fall Creators, Windows Server 1709, and as we look at the next list, we'll see the Hyper-V side of that as well. And then, a couple of new cloud technologies, the VMware Cloud on AWS, great initiative from VMware to extend to the cloud model in AWS with their vSphere and such technologies. That's going to be something Vic talks about here in a second, as well as our service providers. They've been bugging me on Twitter a lot about vCloud Director 9. That's in the mix now, as well as linear tape open or LTO 8 support for tape infrastructure, right? So these are things that from a platform perspective on what you might have to back up, or what you might back up to or through or with, Veeam's there with you.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, let's move on and talk about what's new in Veeam 1 9.5 Update 3. And Rick showed you some great stuff there. As most of you know, Veeam 1's our monitoring, reporting, and management software. And to mirror the new features of backup and replication, Veeam 1 also now provide complete visibility for virtual, physical, and cloud-based workloads. So within Veeam 1, we're adding 2 new notable features with this release: agent monitoring and reporting, and backup compliance reporting. So now, to support our agent management integration into Veeam backup and replication, Veeam 1 will save you even more time while managing agent-based backups of your cloud and physical workloads, and increase your overall visibility of your entire infrastructure. So we added the monitoring and reporting, new alarms, and a backup state overview to Veeam 1 to help better alert you about potential backup job failures with your workloads. And we also added a new protected and unprotected agents report, which it'll save you a lot of time while managing your agents by reporting on the number of protected agents you have in your environment, and the types of agents that are actually protected, like the number of Windows servers that are protected, or the number of Windows workstations that are protected. And the report will also identify the reason why a specific agent is not protected, among a number of other things that it does. So this is a great addition that'll help you organize all of your workloads. And the great thing about this is, if you already have a license in place to manage virtual workloads for Veeam 1, so if you already have Veeam Availability Suite or Veeam Backup Essentials, that obviously already include Veeam 1 in the suite, you're good to go to use Veeam 1 to help monitor and manage all your agents as well. All you need to do is purchase the appropriate licenses for Veeam Agent for Linux or for Veeam Agent for Windows, depending upon what you need, and you can start using Veeam 1's functionality immediately. And then also, the second item here, we're including new backup compliance reporting to help relieve some of the pain and common struggles associated with managing compliance rules. The new reports that we've added to Veeam 1 work with our new data location tagging that we've added to backup and replication to identify the geographic location of production data and of backup copies through new geolocation tags that'll be added to vCenter and standalone hosts, repositories, and tape, because this is one of the big issues, obviously, that's being monitored with GDPR. So these tags will add new reports in Veeam 1 to help you identify the location of your data. One new report is a geolocation data protection report, which will list all data sources grouped by production location, as well as the location of their backup copies and replicas. And another report, data geolocation mismatch report. This will identify any geographic mismatches you may have with your data. So let's say, for example, when you want to restore some data located in an office, for example, in Germany, to a repository in another country like Finland, you will now get a warning, regardless of where that location is, asking you if you are, are you sure you want to go through with this transfer? Because there could possibly be a chance that sensitive customer data protected by GDPR might actually leave the country and now be stored somewhere where it might be forbidden, by compliance standards, for example, to be stored. So knowing this and having the data location tagging in place will provide that extra level of checks and balances on where all of your data is actually located and where it's being transferred. So it's harder to make critical mistakes. So, one thing as an important reminder, it's very important to point out that this backup compliance reporting is not designed to make your business immediately compliant by using Veeam 1, but it is designed to assist you through the compliance process and give you the tools to help you with the manual the manual work that's associated with being compliant. Rick, do you have anything to say on compliance reporting to add?
Well, in general with Veeam 1, one of the things I've always said so many times is that I guarantee you Veeam 1 will tell you something about your environment that you didn't know, yet you need to address. And with the agents and with these compliance initiatives, that's more important than ever. I mean, it was definitely important in the virtualized part of the data center. But, just take that mindset into the value of the suite that Veeam 1 brings to backup and replication. And I think you'll immediately find some value in your organization.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks. So, in addition to the main features, that we've already mentioned in our, in backup and replication in Veeam 1, we've added even more with Update 3 that we'd like to share with you as well here. So, first off, for our service providers, and ultimately for all of you who rely on service providers, with the recent increase in instances where a threat to a company's data has come from inside of an organization instead of the outside. With Update 3, we're now also giving service providers the ability to enable protection of their tenants' backups against the threat of insider-related ransomware and accidental deletions that might happen, or even malicious activity from an upset employee through insider protection for Veeam Cloud Connect. And this is just another way that we've added important functionality that safeguards your data and keeps it available at all time. And I'm going to hand the mic back over to Rick so he can give us a good use case of this to put it into better perspective for you.
This insider protection capability, Vic, it's really one of my favorites. So let's take a look right now. This is an organization who has maybe an insider, a malicious employee who's basically maliciously or intentionally deleted on-premises production data and backup data. It's almost like a disgruntled employee, and it could be potentially like a ransomware situation or both. Bad news, we've lost all of our data. Well, let's introduce this concept of insider protection. Now, this really means that if Cloud Connect is used, the service provider has the option to hold on to like a recycle bin of sorts of the latest copy of that backup data. Now, this isn't automatic. The end user is going to have to contact the service provider, and then the service provider can take that recycle bin type of copy of the data and then shift it into their cloud repository, and basically it could potentially save an organization. So this technology, we're really excited to have in Update 3, and this is only available with Veeam Cloud Connect, the backup service. So if you've been thinking about that, this is a new use case that, for the service providers who offer this technology, this is a really big, strong play in regards to being resilient against insider attacks and the like.
Yep, no doubt. Thanks, Rick. And then moving on to tie back to the backup compliance reporting that I talked about a few minutes ago. We've also added the engine to Veeam Backup and Replication that makes it possible to do the compliance reporting inside Veeam 1, and that's by adding data location tags. And as I mentioned before, and Rick's talked about too, this helps ensure the data sovereignty compliance that you're required to meet by various governing bodies such as GDPR. By simply tagging both your production and backup infrastructure with a location tag. And again, this is a great addition to improve our overall service offering for those of you who need additional assistance with your compliance management. And then one more important add to mention. With the release of Update 3, Veeam will also support another platform, as Rick also mentioned a few minutes ago, VMware Cloud on AWS, to deploy Veeam's availability solutions seamlessly across VMware-based public, private, and hybrid cloud environments. And initially, this will only be available in North America, but we'll also be rolling this out, to our other regions soon. So stay tuned on this. So Veeam availability for VMware Cloud on AWS allows users to run apps across vSphere cloud environments with access to a number of AWS services, and it's obviously ideal for customers looking to migrate apps to the public cloud or extend the capacity of their data centers and even test. So now Update 3 will support this and provide those, those of you who are VMware Cloud on AWS users additional options to ensure availability, including access to Veeam Explorers and Veeam Cloud Connect, our backup copy jobs, and even replication. So you can create backups from VMware Cloud on AWS and backup data to Glacier or to Veeam Cloud Connect or on-prem, and even replicate VMs to the cloud in the background for controlled migrations. And for those of you with larger businesses that want to take advantage of the cost savings of AWS public cloud, this is a great opportunity, and it'll be available with all 3 editions of Veeam Availability Suite. Okay, so where do our new main features fall within our editions? So built-in agent management is available across all of our editions, Standard, Enterprise, and Enterprise Plus. And Veeam 1's agent monitoring and reporting will also be included in all 3 editions. And like all of our storage integrations, the full functionality of IBM and Lenovo support will be available in Enterprise Plus only, while our free version also includes some limited functionality to the Veeam Explorer for both IBM and Lenovo. And we're providing backup compliance reporting in all of our editions of Veeam 1, including the free version of Veeam 1 to help assist you through your clients, your compliance journey. All right. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Andy so he can talk a little bit more about the new functionalities introduced with our Veeam agents.
Thanks, Vic. Just a reminder to everyone before we cover agents, just with Veeam Availability Suite alone, we really invite you to listen again on the recording, check out the questions that have been answered, and really look at our website, because this was such a robust release that we could spend all day on this webinar and still not cover everything that was released. But exciting news as well, we're very happy to announce the release of the new Veeam agents for Microsoft Windows 2.1 and Linux version 2. Now, with both of these agents, they work with Veeam Availability Suite 9.5 Update 3, and they deliver availability for all workloads, virtual, physical, and cloud, from one single management console. What this does, it really extends our position, Veeam, our leadership position, for being the best for VMware vSphere and Microsoft Hyper-V, so #1 availability for any app, any data, on any cloud. And as we move on to Microsoft Windows version 2.1, What this does, it really helps improve efficiency through a full integration with Veeam backup and replication. This includes centralized management of our Veeam agents and failover cluster support. Another thing is it optimizes backup performance for server workloads with optional change block tracking for faster incremental backups of Windows servers. This reduces the risk and gets backups offsite with support for Microsoft OneDrive as a backup target for Windows-based workloads. A few other things, it includes Microsoft Enterprise application support, decreased RPOs for server-based applications, and increased availability and protection options for client and workstation. In regards to Linux, the latest release of Linux version 2 enables you to streamline the discovery, deployment, and centralized management of Veeam agents, gaining visibility into all backups, Veeam backups, and restores. Backup directly to the cloud with fully integrated, fast, and secure backups and restore functionality through a Veeam-powered service provider of your choice. And you can leverage new capabilities for more efficient use of your existing storage investment. You can also gain complete visibility and management of virtual, physical, and cloud, and increase data integrity and security. And Rick will go over some of the more in-depth technical analysis of both agent releases.
And the agents have that technology capabilities that I challenge is good enough for basically anyone in the data center or physical servers or the cloud today. But specifically, one of the flagship or cornerstone capabilities is the Windows failover cluster support. And that, I briefly showed that, but that's one of those things that, has been very often requested from Veeam that we honestly just hadn't had an answer to. And the kind of important thing to think about with this cluster support is this is both for physical clusters, but also maybe you still have some virtualized application clusters. That's something that Veeam hasn't been able to back up, usually due to things like physical mode RDMs and things like that. This is an option now. And that change block tracking driver, that's pretty good stuff. I'm actually starting a white paper on that thing coming up soon. And then also on the Linux side, I'm really a fan of some of these kind of rounding out capabilities. One, sending the Linux backups to the scale out backup repository. That's a great technology, by the way, to make sure you never fill up, or if you need more or need to remove something, that scale out repository is a great target. And then also sending backups to Cloud Connect. This is really a good use case for that insider protection technology I spoke of just a second ago, but also the offsite element, more important than ever today in the ransomware era, as well as encryption to kind of round out the use case of moving anything over the network or offsites. So both the agent for Windows and the agent for Linux have really taken on a pretty significant new set of capabilities.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. All right, that's a lot of stuff. So before we get to questions, we want to remind you that there's no better time than now to visit Veeam.com. Go to the top right corner of the page and click download to upgrade to update 3. And also try our agent products as well if you haven't done so yet. So you can start managing all of your workloads from one location. If you're not a customer, we encourage you to visit the site and download a free trial of Veeam Availability Suite, which will it'll allow you to try out the product for 30 days with no feature limitations. But if you simply just want to learn a little bit more about what's new in Update 3, download the What's New document on the Veeam Availability Suite page or the agents pages for additional detail on all the new features. And then before we get to questions, I want to remind you about one more thing. We want to encourage all of you to consider joining us and registering to attend VeeamON 2018, which in the Americas will be held in Chicago on May 14th through the 16th this year. We had a wonderful crowd for VeeamON 2017, and we're expecting even more to attend in Chicago this May. So please consider joining us for a number of great speakers from the industry, over 60 breakout sessions, great networking opportunities, and of course, the best party in the industry. So check out veeamon.com when you get a chance, and we hope to see you at one of these. All right, let's move on to questions. Any questions out there, Rick, that we haven't had a chance to answer yet?
Yeah, and just, well, actually, no, we have answered them all. And a big thanks to our R&D team that's helping us out here. They're allowing me to tweet while we're doing this webinar. So a couple of questions I'm going to highlight here is that, really around the cluster support. Again, a lot of interest there. And one individual had a question about, if we're talking about a SQL cluster, am I going to restore the SQL resource or the cluster? Well, the important thing to note is you can bring back the whole agent, but you have those restored capabilities with the explorers. So Veeam Explorer for SQL Server. So if you have a clustered SQL resource, we're really backing up the data as well, with that log management, that separate job that we have. And if you need to restore just a SQL Server stored procedure, we don't actually mess with the cluster. We'll actually take that stored procedure or that table or the whole database or whatever, and we'll put it back into the database in native terms, right? So get your head around the explorers, because that comes in as well. A question came in about the agents from Yi. Yi asks, does the Veeam agent standalone have the capabilities for those explorers? So yes and no is the answer. I mean, mainly the agent can do application-aware image-based processing with the free edition. But with the restore to those explorers, you really want to have the integration with the backup and replication server, because then you'll have the proper use of those Veeam Explorers. Because Veeam Explorer for Exchange, Veeam Explorer for SQL, Active Directory, SharePoint, Oracle, those are available with backup and replication, so you got to send your backups there. Good question there. Here's one that came out. Is there any, Paul asked a question about, we talk about the storage arrays, and Vic, Andy, anytime we announce a storage array that's now available or coming soon, everybody then is, what about this one? Well, Paul has asked about one that unfortunately we've not announced yet, but trust me, the Universal Storage API, one of the objectives of that technology is to really ramp up the storage arrays quickly to become a supported source for Veeam. And I actually like to use an analogy, kind of like an airport. Air traffic control will sequence in airplanes to land, right? And they've got a spacing, right? I don't know, 10-kilometer spacing or something like that. Well, that's kind of like the QA effort of bringing an array into the Universal API. We need to sequence it into QA, and they need this window to get it done. So some of the ones we've already announced, Infinidat and Pure, those are being sequenced right now, and there's other arrays out there that are wanting to talk to the control tower and get their sequence spot. I don't know, Vic, if you like that analogy, but I think that works from a QA perspective.
Well done. I like it.
Cool. That's definitely not in the message, not in the script, but that's how I roll.
Yeah.
Anyways, one individual asked a question about, what about Veeam availability for Nutanix? You've announced that. Is that ready yet? Will that support different types of technologies for that? It's not available yet. I have seen it, by the way. We're real close to a proper beta, so stay close to us there. The landing page is the best place for that. One other question was around the restore. What about the restore media? How does that work? Well, that's an important thing to highlight. The question came from Stefan, but one thing we've done with the agent management within backup and replication is we've actually made this so easy for you. The restore media is put in the repository. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like, are you doing all those steps to do, to keep these systems available, including that restore media? So during that backup, we just make sure that the restore media is put in the repository. So that's why that is a good idea. And so that's another benefit of using the agent management. So I've kind of handpicked a few questions, and again, most of them have been answered. Again, big thanks to we got our product managers from the Agent for Windows and Agent for Linux team here. Really appreciate them helping out here. So the answer is, for those of you who got the written response, I mean, it's right from the source. These guys know better than me. So here's one from an individual in Germany. He or she asks, is the new Veeam agent for Windows also available for the small licenses? Oh yeah, good question. So yeah, Veeam Essentials, right? Those are the bundles of virtual machine backup up to 6 sockets. If you're an Essentials customer, you can absolutely add agent licenses and do everything I just showed you and everything we talked about. We don't want to exclude enterprise capabilities from the smaller use case at all. So definitely you can enjoy that. And then one step further, once like Veeam Availability Orchestrator comes out, you'll be able to use that as well. Even though that's messaged and written with big, large enterprise aspirations, you'll be able to use that as well. And I'm going to flip it around with Dima's answer there. There's also an emerging use case of Veeam just for the agents, meaning no VMware or Hyper-V license at all. Maybe you're using Zen Server. Maybe you're using KVM. Maybe you're all cloud. Maybe you're all physical. So VNR isn't really required for some of these capabilities. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, I've tried to add some local color to the questions as I have, but the questions keep coming in and the answers keep coming out, so we'll just keep going through this. Chris asked a good one. Is there a plan to build disaster recovery media for clients used to clone hardware? So Chris, that's a good question. Now, there is no kind of universal deploy recovery tool. I think that's where you're going with it. That's not really the use case for the agents, but there are different and maybe just as applicable mechanisms. One is, the instant, the backups we take with the agents can be recovered to Hyper-V, right? So that's an interesting use case, right? And if you have an agent backup on disk, the thought is you can then go and do an instant recovery to Hyper-V, right? That's available now. So Chris, that might be something to think about. That might actually be better than a mass deploy. Okay, so some interesting things to think about. And then good question there from the individual from Germany again. Is there something in the cookbook about Windows Boot Camp on Mac? No, we've not really announced any Mac capabilities thus far. Okay, well, as far as I'm looking, the Q&A panel, I've answered a few out loud, and there's been a number of written responses. But Andy and Vic, do you guys have any other questions, comments, observations that you'd like to share here today?
No, I don't have anything else. Rick, sounds like you've hit on it pretty good. Make sure you get to veeam.com and download that update, update 3. Big change, obviously, from our last version, and take advantage of this new functionality.
Oh, I guess I should highlight, how does that upgrade go? You go to the KB, on the download page, you get the what's new. Always read through that real quick. And then the other thing to maybe highlight is, you'll download this update, and then it's what I call an on top of install. So it's very easy. You don't have to, think about it too hard, but just go ahead and download that, install it on top of your existing Veeam 1 and VNR, and you will be good. All right, we are going to keep this Q&A panel open. We're going to type a few questions, but the audio is going to stop. So on behalf of the whole global product team, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this product launch webinar. And that's going to conclude my contribution to the presentation here today.
Thanks, everyone.